So we're going to start a new topic today, and we're going to create a new project for this. So we're going to start talking about arrays. And so what you want to do is inside of Eclipse, we're going to go ahead and go File, New, and then make a new Java project. Now if yours doesn't say Java project here, it should at least say project. And just in case there's anybody like that, we're going to go click project. Then when you go in here, if this is all just looks like this, expand Java and select Java project. Once you do that, or if you clicked Java project in the beginning, then it should look like this, and we want this thing to be called arrays and loops. Okay, so arrays and loops is the name of this new project. We're going to finish that. And that gives us a new project over here. So if you double click that or expand the triangle, let's see. Okay, so for me it gives me an SRC folder, but nothing's in there yet. So what we want to do is we want to get a copy of my world in there. So what I'm going to do is go to using user input, expand that, expand the SRC folder, expand the default package, and then come down to my world. Okay, so a couple things you could do here, either Control C or right click and copy. Once we have that copied, we're going to go back up to arrays and loops, select the SRC folder. Alright, right click and paste. So when you do that, it automatically creates this default package and puts my world inside of there. If you have two copies, or what looks like two copies of my world right now, don't worry about that too much. Okay. If that happens, you can always right click the project and refresh the project. So if I refresh the project, for me, it's going to figure out that there's two of these here, and it doesn't need two of them. It's just going to get rid of the one. Okay, are we all on the same page so far? All right. So the next thing we're going to do is make a new class. We're going to call the class Intro to Arrays. So you can either do that from File, New Class, or just hit that New Class button that is up there on your menu bar, or shortcut buttons. Okay, so then the name of this thing is going to be called Intro to Arrays. And we want that to have a main method. And then we're going to finish that. All right. So I'm going to close the Project Explorer now. I'm just going to look at Intro to Arrays. I'm going to just tidy this up a little bit. We're going to start with taking a little bit of notes. We're going to go slash, asterisk, asterisk, and hit return. That allows you to kind of have that block of comments there. So an array is an object that makes a group of values. Okay? We call each value in this thing an element. We can create an array of any type. Okay, and so when we say type, remember what we're talking about is like either double, or what's another one? String, int. Okay, you could create an array of color. You could create an array of scanners if you wanted to. Okay, you can create an array of any type that you want. Okay, even Boolean. All of the all of the values. Okay, and again we call those elements. Have to be the same type. Each element is automatically indexed. And we'll look more at that in a second. And we declare an array using square brackets. So it looks like there's just like a box character there because you can't see the space in between them. But there's actually two characters there. Okay, so we use that sort of box brackets right there, or square brackets, after the type. Okay, so let's look at an example. So we declare an array using type, bracket, and then identifier. Okay, so for example, let's say that I wanted to make a string array. Okay, so it automatically puts in that square bracket, ending square bracket for me there. And let's just go ahead and call this thing siblings. So we're going to learn my siblings' names now. So my oldest brother is Harry. My oldest sister is Laurel. My next sister is Krista. And my youngest brother is Andrew. All right. So that array, if you want to look at this, we're saying here that we're going to have a string array. Okay? So these brackets right here tell us that we're going to have more than one value. They're all basically called siblings, and there's a way that we can access each individual part of that. But we'll talk about that in a second. So this is just one way of creating an array. We use French braces to show the elements that are inside of the array, and then we separate each element with a comma. Okay, so that's how that's working. And what happens here is it automatically gets indexed. So siblings has indexes 0, 1, 2, and guess what? 3. All right. So indexes always start with 0. Okay. And again, arrays are indexed automatically. So there's nothing that I have to do in order to index them. Me putting comments here doesn't index them. These were already indexed 0, 1, 2, and 3. Okay? One thing that an array does is it automatically keeps track of its own length. So we say we create some variable like length of siblings. Okay? Or number of siblings, for example, equals, and then we can go siblings, which is the name of my array, dot length. Okay? And dot length, what do you think length of siblings is going to be? So if I print it out, what's going to get printed out there? So let's try it. Okay, so it prints out 4. Let me just do that. So does that make sense why it would print out 4? Okay, so even though they're indexed 0 through 3, there are 4 elements there. Harry, Laurel, Krista, and Andrew. I have 4 siblings. Okay, so the length of the array is 4 because that's how many elements are in there. Okay, and I'll just put a little whatever the name of your array is, dot length gives you the number of elements in the array. So, but you got to name the array here, right? So like siblings.length. We can't do array.length in the code. Okay, so far. We're also able to like access each part of the array. So for example, if I wanted to print out Krista, I would go like this, system.out.println, and siblings at 2. So that's the way we kind of read that. System.out.print, siblings at 2. And if I run that again, this time it's going to print out 4, that's length of siblings, and then it prints out Krista. So that's how I reference a particular element in the array. Does that make sense? So just to kind of put a note on that, we can use square brackets to refer to an element by its index. So we can also change elements. Okay, so for example, let's say that something happened to Andrew. We wanted to say siblings at 3 now equals Andrea. Okay. So that's actually changing the element in the array. And if I print that out, siblings at 3, you'll see now that it's actually been changed. So now we have 4 Krista Andrea instead of Andrew. So far, so good? Okay. So one thing that we can't do here is we can't do something like system.out.print and then do siblings at 4. Okay. So this isn't a syntax error. I just want to show you what happens here. So siblings at 4, is there an element at index 4? No. Okay. So what's going to happen then is it's going to run this code, and it still prints out 4 Krista Andrea, but then it prints out this error message to say array index out of bounds exception. Okay. So basically what ended up happening is we are referencing an index that does not exist. So referencing an index that does not exist gives an array index out of bounds, and they call it an exception, but we're just going to call it a runtime error. Okay, so that would be the same thing for like siblings at -1. There's no such thing as a -1 index. Okay, siblings at 10. Well, since I don't have 11 siblings, there is not an index at 10. Okay, so I'm going to comment this out so that we don't see that anymore, but I just want you to understand that idea. Okay, one other thing that you cannot do, just let me come back to this. So let's say that, let's pick on Andrew some more here. So let's say that I want to say true here. So somebody said that you could do a Boolean. So I can't do that. The reason I can't do that is because this is not a string. Okay? And I'm declaring here that everything in this array is a string. Okay? So I can't put true there. I can't put 56 there. Okay? I can only put a string. Okay? Now the language doesn't know that these things are all siblings. It just knows that these things are all strings, and I'm calling it sibling for myself.